Almost messed it up. Carl, can you unmute?
Yep, there it is.
Okay, I was gonna say, okay, cool. All right.
Excellent. Hello, everybody. Today, welcome. It is Wednesday, Hump Day in July. The heat is outside, and I hopefully just thankful for everybody that's on here. First, I'd like to introduce the topic, and in a moment, I'll introduce a little bit about myself. Um, this is about entrepreneurship through acquisition, and in particular, I'm going to walk through how to buy a business as part of your financial portfolio as you build wealth. We're going to talk a little bit about, where we are today in the state, in the U.S. in particular when it comes to Black business ownership. We're going to talk a little bit about the economics of business ownership, and I will be giving you very specific insights that can help you see if this is a good fit for your future going forward. And then we're going to talk about what do you do next? What are some things that you can tangibly take away and go ahead and do as we go through this. But to get started, I'd like to start by talking a little bit about knowledge versus ignorance. And I don't know if many of you remember the movie The Matrix. At one point, the lead of the movie, Neo, had to make a decision whether to take the red pill or the blue pill. Whenever I talk to folks when it comes to economic matters, the only knowledge, the only good is really knowledge, and the only evil is really ignorance. And I think it's important that we start with that because I'm going to share some stuff that you may know, you may not have heard. But after this discussion today, I don't want anyone to be able to walk away and say they didn't know these things that many people have been doing and implementing to help build serious wealth for their families and their communities. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the wealth gap. I don't know if most people have heard the statistics on the gap between Black families and white families when it comes to wealth. And I'm not talking about income, I'm talking about net worth wealth. Depending on the study most recent in 2023, the gap was estimated to be about 10 times the average white family has over the average Black family, somewhere around 10 times. I just wanted to highlight that that's just beginning to scratch the surface. Here are the two of the wealthiest people in the United States. One you may have known is Robert Smith. He is the richest Black man in the United States, and his net worth is around $9.2 billion. So obviously he's a very successful venture capitalist investor that has built wealth to an extraordinary level. If you've heard of the 1%, he is in the 0.01%. But I'm going to show you someone else, a gentleman named Warren Buffett that you probably have heard of. Look at his net worth, $134 billion. Even at the top of the pyramid, the 0.01%, there are white families are having 15 times the wealth gap. Now, history is written, we can't do much about it, but I just wanted to show the gap between that. And one of the reasons that's happened is because there is a challenge for Black people being able to transfer wealth. First, you have to have wealth to be able to transfer it. We don't have to go through all the reasons why we may not have the wealth that other racial groups do, but it is real that when you look at the percentage of folks that are being able to transfer wealth, a Black family is 0.5 times more likely to be able to benefit from a wealth transfer. That means, in all likelihood, you're not going to inherit a great deal of wealth. So if you're going to generate generational wealth for your family going forward, you've got to create it yourself. There's other barriers, whether it's education and dealing with the justice system. Even we get paid less than other folks. But what I want to start shifting our thinking is, there are things we can do if we make a choice, just like Neo had to make in the Matrix, about what do we want the next 15, 20, 30 years and the legacy for us to build. But let's start by understanding, how does the wealthy become wealthy? And there's a lot of different ways. Here are 5 different ways to become uber wealthy. One is you could be lucky, you could hit the lottery. And if you happen to be blessed and in that way, you might be able to hit the lottery. I wouldn't count on that as your wealth building strategy, neither would any financial advisors out there. The second is you can inherit wealth, but I talked about we don't have the property, the real estate, the businesses to inherit from our family to be successful using that method. You can use extreme high earners. If you've got a God-given talent, whether it's in music or sports or in your profession, doctors and other things, that allows you to earn a great deal of money, you can absolutely build wealth that way. But most people aren't those unique 1% talent type people like the Michael Jordans or LeBron James or Venus Williams and others. And the fourth method is extreme savings. Now, that is a method that actually can work. If you could spend far less than you earn over a lifetime, you can build enough wealth to create generational wealth and be able to invest in other types of investment options. But this research that was done a couple years ago, How the Wealthiest Got to Where They Are by Sergio Salgado, available online through Knowledge at Wharton. It goes through, the whole paper talks about, they took a study of how wealth was created. Now, if you look at the chart there, in the orange shows where the initial wealth for folks were. So a lot of people, if they start off wealthy in life, they remain wealthy in life. They may not grow it much unless they do stuff, but they're already considered, and these are people that are considered in the top 0.1%. You could see the green part is the savings rate. What they found is that the super wealthy save at a far greater rate than the rest of the population. The third element, if you see going up the chart, is the return rate. This group of folks are earning higher returns on their saving. You can't make money unless you save money where you can invest it in things to make more money. So if you're starting out with $0 and you've got no savings, you've got no money to invest. So the first hurdle, anyone that built wealth have to figure out a way to save and earn a higher rate of return for their investment. I wanted to note though, look at the purple, and this is what 95% of the population depends on, is labor earnings. This is your time for money. You're out there working, you're getting a job, and even if you're making a great deal of money, $300,000, $400,000 a year, you cannot generate generational wealth through labor earnings alone. Let me repeat that. You may have a great job. Your family may have great income, whether you're a doctor or a lawyer, no matter what that is. It has been proven that it is very difficult to generate that 1% wealth through your labor earnings alone. So how do the wealthy get wealthy? Well, the answer is simple. It's business ownership. They own businesses at a far higher rate, sometimes 4 to 5 times the rest of the population. And the wealth creating event that happened is when they build a business, which is functionally an investment, and they exit it, they sell that business. So not only were they making money all those years, at some point they sold to a Fortune 500 company, a competitor, they sold to someone else, and they got a liquidation event, a cash event. All that equity they built into the business is now cashed out, and now they've become super wealthy. They've invested in the stocks and real estate and other assets like that. Now, if that is the way the wealthy has become wealthy, what can we do starting where we are right now? Now, many people on this call and many of your friends and family, there's this choice that's out there for them to make. And it's typically, I put it between, do you become a business owner or do you have a job? I just wanted to talk a little bit about the differences between the two. There's this concept called the cash flow quadrant, EBSI, and I'll explain that in a moment. But the first thing when you think about business versus job, what are the benefits of business ownership? Number one, there is unlimited earnings. If you own a job, you have limited earnings. And let me tell you why you have a limited earnings. When you work for someone else, they are dictating what you're paid based on the market. Even if they wanted to pay you 2 times what the market rate for that position is, it's difficult because they would be taking money out of their pockets and or their shareholders' pockets to give to you. And they're not incented to do that. So they could only pay you best at what the market is. The problem of that is it's what the market is. If you want more money, if you ask for that raise to make more money, they might replace you with somebody else that's at the market. So first, someone else controls your destiny, and there is a ceiling that puts you on what you can earn as an employee. Second, business owners get to make their own schedule. They are the boss of their own business. They don't have a boss that says you need to show up at a meeting during your kid's graduation. The business owner ultimately gets to make a decision. That does not mean they work less. They have the flexibility of how they schedule their time, their work. If you have a job, you're working to a schedule. If you need to work 60 hours a week to get that promotion, to get to where you want to get that dream house, you've got to work to a schedule. But there is a downside of being a business owner, and that really lies in there is risk in being a business owner. Business owner inherently has the risk of the investment not going well. If you have a job, you have almost no risk. If you get fired, you go find another job. So understanding those differences, let's talk a little bit about the options between jobs and business. On the right-hand side, you can see this concept around the cash flow quadrant. In the upper left, all the people that are employees, you have a job. You are changing time for money, and about 60% of the population's work for somebody else. A lot of them in Fortune 500 companies. But there's another kind of misnomer out there that if you're self-employed, which technically legally you do have a business, but if you're the only employee of the business or the business depends on you to generate the value and the cash for the business, then you basically own a job. You don't have a job, you own it. You're still changing time for money. At least you're doing it for yourself. About 35% of the population fall into that. If you look at the upper right-hand B, if you're a business owner, here's the key difference. If you take nothing else away from what I talk about today, as a business owner, you own a system that works for you to generate your income. Let me repeat that. It's not your labor and work. And that's the difference between self-employed. You're deploying a system that includes people, processes, tools, techniques to generate money. Only 4% of the population are actually business owners, if you think about it, in the US. And they're using some kind of system, aka their business, to generate their wealth. That means if they go on vacation, the business system is still making the money. And then there's the fourth quadrant where a lot of people like to get to, and that's where both Robert Smith and Warren Buffett is. They're investors. And the difference there is they have enough money that they put to work for them. So they don't need to have a system to make money. They invest in other people's systems to help make them money. Now, with that in mind, let's talk about entrepreneurship through acquisition and why this has become a very popular path to wealth creation. First, let's define what it is. It's the process of purchasing an existing business and running it as its CEO. It's a fast-track path to own and operate your own business, and it is an attractive alternative that entrepreneur, because day one you come in, you've got a business with a business model, you have customers, you have employees, you have systems. Your focus day one is growing the business. There's typically cash flow generated from the business. In opposed to a startup, where day one in a startup, you're putting money into the business, you're putting time and resources, and your ability to generate cash flow is going to take a while while you're proving out the business model, you're finding your first set of customers, and you're making sure that you can make money doing all of that. Startups are great ideas, but if you're starting a company, I would recommend you start up a company that's bringing something that's never been heard of to the market. It could be a new product or service, servicing a new client base. It could be a new product like the person that invented social media and Facebook. That's a new product. They couldn't acquire that company because it didn't exist. But the reward for being successful in those are worth taking that risk. But know that a lot of capital and money is required to be able to do that. You have to be rich to do a startup and be successful. Acquisition entrepreneurship gives you a benefit in that day one, there is capital. Someone already built the system to make money. The new owner comes in and they're continuing to improve and generate income from what someone else has started. Well, let me start by introducing myself a little bit. My name is Karl Barham, and entrepreneurship through acquisition is really fundamentally making a decision to bet on yourself. I went to school, I got an engineering degree, I went and got an MBA right here in Atlanta at Emory University, and I went to go work for really great Fortune 500 companies. Work in sales, they let me work in operations, engineering, finance. I acquired businesses through M&A. I divested business, I integrated business. I learned all of the different functions of running a business, and so have many of you on this call. You got the degrees, you got the training, you work for companies, you were helping other people and shareholders build their business. You've got the skills. And the question is, can you do it for yourself? And I'm going to suggest yes. There were 3 books that I read while I was working that just changed the way I view my path forward financially for my life. And the first one was How to Buy a Small Business by Harvard Business Review. It's an excellent read, and it tells you about how to identify the right type of small business that makes sense. Let me tell you what the book is going to introduce to you that was changed my mind on how I looked at it. I always thought, especially as an engineer, that these technology companies were the great investments to go into to acquire a business, because you hear how much they're worth, these billion-dollar unicorns. Buying a small business is buying about a business that is consistently profitable through economic swings. Some of these businesses you would never even heard of or seen, but they make a whole lot of money, and that money can be reinvested into the business, pay your salary, and help you build equity and wealth into this enterprise that you're building. But it tells you how to identify non-conventional small businesses that are, and the key thing is, it may not be something that you would think of. I know growing up, my family's from Jamaica, and there would be a lot of folks, family members, that would open up a restaurant or a food business. Love those businesses, but let me tell you, the failure rate for restaurants are really, really high, and the ability to scale a restaurant, make more money, is limited and difficult. When you start thinking about, instead of opening up a restaurant, look at the services and products that are used inside of a restaurant. Take, for instance, the vent cleaning. By code, you are required to clean your vents every 6 months in most states. And so the service provider that does that isn't the business owner. They typically hire somebody. The beauty of that business, recurring revenue, you come in every 6 months, it's driven by code, it uses specialized equipment and techniques, and you could have a base of customers that come back to you again and again. And every time a new restaurant opens up, that's another client. It's a labor-intensive job, or it's mostly labor, not a lot of capital. A really great business. You'd be surprised that those businesses, for every dollar of revenue, can generate 40 cents to 50 cents of cash in the owner's pocket. I sold one of those businesses before, so I know very well the money can make. I would never walk in and say that's the kind of business that I would want to own. But if you look at the numbers, it makes sense. The second book is Dondo Investor, and this is a disciple of Warren Buffett that talks about how to look at businesses where you're purchasing it at a value that's below its inherent value. So buy low, sell high. That's what this book. How do you identify businesses that can be bought at a fair price, but you can bring your special superpowers, talents, gifts that you've learned through your education, school, and elsewhere to help build and improve and create value within the business. The last one, Buy Then Build, that's your process book. This tells you the mechanics of how to buy a business successfully. I'm going to walk you through some of the steps in that so you could start whetting your appetite. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about why now. If you're ever considering doing this, I don't think you should wait 10 more years. I think you should consider doing it now. And that's because the baby boomers are retiring. It's called a silver tsunami. What is happening now? 72 million people that were born over a 12-year period are now at retirement age. And every single week, over 100,000 baby boomers are retiring. Every week, 52 weeks a year, every week, there are baby boomers retiring. What's happening is their kids no longer want their business. Small business owners historically would transfer the business to their children. Their children, unfortunately, don't want their business. They want to be influencers. They want to be tech people. They want to do other things. And so these businesses carry a tremendous amount of wealth in the trillions of dollars. And they are currently owners are retiring and they're looking to sell their business. Now, why that's a benefit to folks like us is as those businesses are trend, there are more businesses coming to the market, quality businesses, than there are buyers for these businesses. And so what that means is that a lot of these businesses are well priced, they're well valued businesses that people now have to transfer to get the equity out of their businesses. In addition to that, you have the SBA, which is offering 7A loans that you can get that can be used to acquire businesses. So on one side, you have a bunch of businesses coming, good businesses coming on market, where it's keeping the price at a fair level. And then you have the SBA that provides funding for folks to be able to buy it. If you're considering buying a business, this is the best window of time to do it because a lot of great businesses are coming on the market and being available today. We call it the silver tsunami. Just here in Georgia, to give you an idea, 78,000 businesses plus have owners that are over 55 years old right now in Georgia. You could see a little heat map there by counties. So if you're here in Georgia, Atlanta Metro, Atlanta, look at how many employees, how much revenue these businesses are generating right now. And if you go and talk to owners of these businesses, they're either thinking about selling their business or they're in the process of doing that as we speak. So the available supply of businesses are high, and the market for folks to be able to go out there and do that is available. So what does it look like to buy a business? Well, the company that I own, Transworld Business Advisors of Atlanta, Peachtree, we have an 8-step process to entrepreneurship through acquisition. And step one is really basically taking charge. Everybody that's ever bought and owned a business, acquired a business, they started by making a decision. They took the red pill. They didn't stay with status quo. Let me keep working for a company. Hope I get that raise. Hope I get that promotion. Taking the blue pill. They took the red pill. They said, look, I'm good in life right now, but I've got a window of opportunity where I can make a change and be successful. And I'm going to decide to go do that. The how we're going to get to, but they're making a conscious decision to do that. And here's the great thing. Just like any other investment, you can make a decision now. If you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, you can go and acquire business. You got 10, 15 years to build equity in that business and leave that business in a great position for your kids, for your families, for creating wealth, legacy wealth, to be able to do other things. But I'll also give you another reason why taking charge matters now, in particular in our community. As a community, we don't own a lot of businesses, quite honest. And people that own businesses tend to be the leaders in their community. They're able to give jobs. Being a business owner helps other people pay for their family's education, for their schooling, for others. So job creation and being able to create jobs and paying people well, and also training people to be successful business owners in the future themselves is another advantage if you're the owner, if you're making business. So not only is there an economic benefit to doing this for you, there's also societal benefit. If more people, I would say right now, if in Georgia, 1,000 people over the next 2 years acquire a business that's doing $1 million in revenue, we will move the needle on the wealth gap, period. If you do the math on it, in 10 years, there will be that 1,000 folks, there'd be 1,000 more millionaires created just if 1,000 people acquired a business that's doing over $1 million in revenue. They can build a business and they would be, that's more millionaires. Imagine if you scale that across every city, every country, every state, every country. And the second step in the process is evaluation. How do you know what's the right business? So those books that I introduced starts thinking about what types of business model fits with you. Where are your talents, gifts, superpowers intersect with the needs of a business so you can unlock value? Let me say that again. The evaluation of those businesses, there's a financial evaluation that needs to be done. Is it making money? Do I think? But it's also about you. What are the things that you can do well that can help you unlock that value? If you're gifted in sales, You can get a business that's struggling with top line revenue. Everything else is in place, but the owner was a plumber and did plumbing, and then he owned his own plumbing business, but he never really mastered sales. If you work for Salesforce and you were a gifted salesperson in selling technology, I bet you can master selling plumbing, selling construction, selling roof, selling retail items online. Take the talents that you've developed, find businesses where those talents can unlock value. That's part of the evaluation project. Getting a little bit of education about the process around that, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, is the next step. Understanding how will it be financed? What does it take to get through due diligence, closing? How do you successfully transfer a business? These are all part of the education process that you need to do to learn how to acquire. But there's a second education that you can start right now if you're employed or if you have a small business. Start learning from other small business owners. There are peer-to-peer groups. There are training. There are communities of folks that have been there, done that you can start learning. How do I delegate properly in my business? What types of things do I delegate? Should I do my own books and records in QuickBooks, or should I outsource that? Making those decisions are things that small business owners do all the time, and you can start educating yourself and building a network of support as you acquire a business. Step 4 is the search. And the search, I will not lie to you, is not an easy one, but there are plenty of businesses that could be really, really great for you. Identifying a search target list of companies that you do, and it is like anything else, like sales, going through an NDA process where you're signing a non-disclosure, reading an executive summary on the business, meeting with the owners and asking the right question. Why do you want to sell the business? How do you generate sales? What percentage of your revenue comes from your top 5 customers? How consistent is your cash flow? There are a ton of questions. How long is your lease on the property that you have, that you start going through and being able to assess part of your search before you get to step 5, which is making an offer. Let me be clear. You start the search, you make an offer, and then you do due diligence. But you got to make sure that both the buyer and seller can come to agreements on terms before you invest more time, energy, and effort to acquire the business. Making the offer is going to be scary the first time. But understand, making an offer is just that. It is an offer to buy the business contingent on a successful completion of due diligence. If you've bought a house, you know this process. You make the offer on the house and then you order an inspection. The inspection turns up that the roof has a leak and they need to replace the guardrails on the backyard steps. And you make a list of items that you can identify, and either you might reduce the cost of the house, what you're going to buy, or you make sure that the seller is fixing those items, but you're doing that full inspection. Well, that's what due diligence is in a business acquisition. You're making sure that the business is what it's represented. Tell me about your key employees in the business, your key customers. How do you make money? What is your special sauce? You go through a series of reviews. There might be over 100 documents that are shared and reviewed by you and your advisors. But at the end of that due diligence process, you're coming to a decision to move forward to purchase it. Now, once you get to that stage, the next step is start working through details of whether lease assignment, acquiring property, if that's part of it, and arranging for funding, whether it's through a lender, through investors, through cash, equity from your house, or from retirement deals, or from savings. You look at how you're going to determine make a decision on how you're going to fund that after you complete due diligence. The seventh step is closing, and closing is an event where the lawyers come together and they put down all of the agreements for that acquisition down on paper where everybody signs. And last but not least is the post-closing. There is a transition time when you buy a small business. Most times 30 days to 90 days, you're working with the owner to successfully transfer the business over so that they're helping you be successful in taking over their business. 8 steps, but it does start with one simple decision, whether or not you want to take charge. When you get to steps 5 and 6, making the offer and due diligence, step 4, 5, and 6, a little bit to know what typically happens there. your expression of interest for the sellers, it may come through a broker, it may come directly with a seller, is the first thing. I'm interested in buying your business. And for me to make an offer, I need some information about your business. So I'm willing to sign a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA. And let's chat a little bit and let's make sure that this is a good fit for what I'm looking for. You might share some information about yourself. If someone's had a business for 40 years, they've had 40 employees and tons of customers, and they've been providing a service into the community, it's going to matter to them who they sell their business to. So a little bit of information about you is going to be helpful in them assessing whether or not they would consider an offer from you. They want to know financially, can you actually afford to acquire my business? Do you have the necessary experience? So be prepared to have a CV, a resume, something about your ability to take over their business as part of your initial communication with a potential seller of the business. But also, you should work with your financial planners, your bank, to make sure you've done a financial statement, estimate your net worth, your liabilities and your assets, so you know how much business can you afford to buy, what is your financial situation. Not only will the seller expect to understand, they do not need the details, they just need to know that you have the ability to do it. But also, if you're using a lender, they're going to require that of you. You don't want the surprise to be that you've got a bad credit hit when you're trying to close the business. You can do and investigate all of that up front. The next thing is you're going to receive some information about the business. We call it a CIM, which is a confidential information memorandum, is what it's often called. And this is going to tell you about the employees, about the customers. You'll get a summary of financials, P&Ls, and tax returns, assets that the business have, and different information about the business that helps you assess if it's a good fit. On some of those, they may identify the name of the business and location in the SIM, some may not. For some businesses, it's highly sensitive to get information out that the business for sale. So there is an expectation of confidentiality, but when you get to the point where you're meeting with the owner, that information would be disclosed. There'll be questions that you're answering through that and meetings with the seller. And then you would be prepared a conditional offer. Conditional offer simply is, I will pay you X amount of money for this business, subject to my due diligence, and that we work out other details of this transaction. That does not mean you are not obligated to buy the business at this point. You are just saying, look, if everything checks out, I'm willing to pay you this. The seller agrees not to shop the business to anybody else, to engage with you long enough for you to determine in due diligence that you want it, arrange for financing, and arrange for closing. If for some reason any of those things don't work for you, then you move on to the next opportunity and the seller moves on to the next opportunity. But there is a pause that happens while two parties try to come together to get a deal done. Completing due diligence happens after there's an offer that's accepted, and this is that inspection process. The folks that you might need to help you in this typically will be somebody that has expertise in financial due diligence. Not all accountants and bookkeepers are good at this. The difference between an accounting that's recording financial transactions and doing financial analysis to see, is there, number one, are the earnings as they stated true, quality of earnings, and two, proof of cash. Is all the money they say they're taking in revenue and expenses that are going out, is that actually happening? And typically you're looking at the bank statements. If they said it was doing $2 million in revenue, you should expect to see $2 million in receipts or bank deposits to justify that. That's a step in that financial analysis part of due diligence. But you're also checking, were there any lawsuits? Are there any insurance claims? What type of insurance you have? How much of that? Are there licensing requirements? There's a whole set of things that you would be investigating in your inspection process through that for due diligence. And then finalizing finance and making sure all of the conditions to close that are met and a transition plan is the last step before you fund and close the transaction. Now, in a moment, I'm going to open up the questions. I know I covered a lot of information there, so I'm going to open up the questions in a moment. But I wanted to highlight two quick things before we open up for question. How much does a business cost is probably your biggest question that anyone would have. So I'm gonna share with you what to expect, give you some averages. According to Biz Buy Sell, which is the largest marketplace for online business sales, they track and produce a report monthly that tells you what businesses are selling for all across the US. The median sale price for a business is around 350,000. So there's 31 million small businesses in the US. And if you look at all of the business transactions that happen, and there's typically about 2,000 to 2,500 transactions per month that they track in this. The average sale price is about 350,000. In Metro Atlanta, that is less than the average house in Atlanta sells for. And these businesses are doing north of 600, 700, up to $1 million in top line revenue. And on the right-hand side, it shows that a lot of these businesses do about anywhere six figures, 100, 125 to $200,000 in net cash flow to the owners. So to give you an idea, at 350,000 average sale price, they sell at about a 2.6 multiple. Let me explain how businesses are valued. The most common way for a business to be valued is to take the cash flow, and that is not the net income that you see on a tax return. The cash flow is all of the income that is generated after you received all your revenue, paid out all your expenses, whether it's cost of goods sold or operating expenses. How much money is left over from that, including all owners' benefit. So some business owners, by tax code, are allowed to expense things like their vehicle. They might have life insurance, health insurance policy, what they pay themselves as the manager of the business. All of that is pulled together in what they call seller discretionary earning, their estimate of the cash flow of the business. To put it simply, think of a business as a black box that produces cash. The cash flow that comes out of that black box is what SDE is, and then you apply a multiple. On average, some are higher, some are lower, 2.6. Most businesses, and when I say most, 95 of small businesses, and I'm going to say small businesses with less than $5 million in revenue, sell between 2 and 3 times its cash flow. Write that down. If you're ever making an offer on a business, except for extreme exceptions, most business will be between 2 and 3 times cash flow. On average, about 2.6. And the reason for that is simple. Remember, I mentioned all these businesses in the market. So the competition that a seller has for the business, I have 2 businesses. One of them does $10 million in revenue, but only generates $500,000 in cash flow. Another business does $2 million in revenue and generates $500,000 in cash flow. They're generating the same cash flow. So you would still be paying a multiple irregardless of the revenue that the business had generated. So it's important to know that you've got to calculate cash flow and apply a multiple. The reasons why something might be higher at 3 versus 2, it depends on qualities of the business. How repeatable is the revenue? How profitable? What are the growth trends? How sustainable? What is the employees like? Does it have intellectual property? There are a bunch of factors that go in that tells you what that range is. Now, some businesses can sell above 3 times, 3 to 4 times. Those businesses are typically larger and generating higher cash flows north of $700,000, $1 million in cash flow. The multiples start to increase to 3 to 4. If you're generating $5 million in cash flow after everything, you might have a business that gets to 6 and 7. If you have intellectual property, patents, and so on, those are all things that can increase the value of a business. But just for today, for our conversations, you could assume 2 to 3 times is the multiple you'd pay on most businesses. The other thing that I wanted to highlight here, and this is just a little bit of like, why go through all of this? What is this worth? Well, sometimes it's easier to just show it in numbers. This is an example of a business that is acquired that's generating EBITDA as another metric for cash flow. That that is excluding all of the seller discretionary earnings. So it's just earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. This is a measure of cash flow for larger acquisitions. Let's assume a business is generating $500,000 in cash flow, and we use, as I said, 2 to 3, a 3 times multiple on the business. The estimated value of the business is about $1.5 million. So let's say that is the initial investment, whether you get it from a bank or you do it in cash, that is your investment. You are buying 100% of the stock of this business. You now own it. If you grow the business at 5% annually over the next 10 years, which is the length of an SBA loan, just so that you know, you would have paid off the business after 10 years. And if you look at the right side, the value of the business will have increased based on the increases in EBITDA and showing how the multiples are growing as it's to $3 million. So just invest $1.5 million to acquire it. And 10 years later, at the time you've paid off the note, the business would have doubled in value. Now, what's the rate of return on that? That is 100%. That is doubling your investment. That is like buying a stock for $100,000, and after 10 years, it is worth $200,000. But that's not the full story of business ownership. If you look down at the bottom, same numbers, let me put in the rest of the story. You look at the cumulative EBITDA. Every year, the owner, you, is taking out the EBITDA that you're earning from the business. And I'm using the accumulated. So year one, it's 500,000. Year two, it's 500 plus 525 because it's growing each year. The EBITDA is growing. So over those 10 years, you would have collected in your pocket over $6 million in what you would be paying to yourself, servicing the debt to pay off the equity of the business, as well as reinvesting in the business to help build the business, more marketing, more people, more things to invest in the business. If the total rate of return, that same $1.5 million investment today would be worth a total value of over $9 million. That's a 500% return on investment for a business acquisition. I challenge anyone to go find any venture capital startup that has that rate of return on something with this kind of risk profile. If you look at stocks, the historic rate is 7, maybe 10% if you're doing good. If you look at real estate, 4, 5, 10% if you're operating an Airbnb. The rate of return on a business, because they're priced at 2 to 3 times multiple, you're talking somewhere about 33 to 50% return on investment if you're able to successfully run a business. So I'm going to pause here, and I'd love to open it up to questions, but the real point of all of this I wanted to make for folks is understanding the economics makes sense. It's easier than most people thought if you know how to do it. But I'd love to open it up to questions and see if anyone has questions, if that's okay. I think you would have to unmute or allow unmute.
Yeah, if anybody wants to unmute and actually speak their question, we probably prefer that. Or if there's something that you just more comfortable putting it in the chat.
Hi, good afternoon.
Ms. Wallace had her hand raised first, Trish.
Oh, okay.
But hey, I got you coming next, though.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Ms. Wallace.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Great presentation. I just have one quick question. I'm trying to.
Hold on, I apologize, everybody. Okay. All right. Stay muted, folks. Thank you.
I'm kind of in a different space, meaning I've started this business. I don't have any contracts yet, but I have. I'm doing the groundwork to get the contracts, but I don't know, like, where do I find the businesses that have been running for such a long time and now they're ready to sell? Like, is there a website that I go to in order to acquire that information? And then once I do acquire that information, will you be the person that will help guide me through? Or is there like a business consultant that I could go to say, hey, once you get this business, we'll sit down with you and walk you through the do's and the don'ts?
Yeah, so to answer the first part of your question, Biz Buy Sell is one of the largest marketplace for small business, and there's several others like that. Businessforsale.com, Biz Buy Sell, DealStream, Axial. So there's a lot of online platform, but the easiest way to start is Transworld on my website, and it's www.transworld.com. And I'll share that at the end where folks can get that. You can go in and sign up to something we call Buyer Match tool, which allows you to put in your criteria, location, revenue, cash flow, industry. And every time there is a business listed that is available for that, you'll get an email. So you can start to monitor, here are businesses that can fit for you to do that. So those are two easy ways to do it. The third would to reach out to a business broker or someone that's in the business of selling businesses and just start forming a relationship, identifying what you're looking for. Every day, my team, I've got 7 folks on my team. Everyone's out right now talking to business owners every day. They're doing valuations, they're thinking about retiring, and there might be a business that is a good fit that matches your interest that they identify once they get to know what you're looking for. To help you through the transaction, once you identify the business, you can retain a business broker to help you, a business advisor to help you with the acquisition. They'll help you with first making sure you're offering the right price, you're not overpaying for the business. 2, the entire process I walk through, they can walk you through that, help you identify funding, getting a lawyer, reviewing the business, meeting with the owners. They're able to save you time and money in the whole transaction to make sure at the end, at the closing table, you're paying the right price, you've asked all the right questions, you got all the information to help you more successful in your search.
Okay. Thank you for that response, Karl. Trisk?
Hey, how are you doing today?
Doing great.
Good, good. My question is more about the definition of the cash flow. I kind of went over that a little bit fast, so I just want to be clear. Sometimes there's a difference in how people define cash flow. And you talked a little bit about EBITDA. Can you kind of give us like a quick synopsis on what is in the cash flow and what is not?
Okay, so really quickly, for this purpose, there are going to be 2 measures of cash flow that's most commonly used. EBITDA, which if you were to take all of the revenue minus all of the expenses, what money is left is called earnings, income, earnings, whatever term. But you are allowed to make adjustments for several things for a business, including non-cash items, which is pulled out. So depreciation and amortization are 2 examples of non-cash items. You can Google what those are, but just think of it as depreciation is how much of an asset are you using each year as defined by the tax code. So you're not paying anybody anything. It's just an expense you're allowed to take from a tax standpoint. So you could add that back. Interest and taxes are going to be different for each person. So if I have $1 million loan, I'm paying interest. If I bought it all cash, I'm not. So we normalize everything to take those things that can be different based on the person for EBITDA. SDE, seller discretionary earnings, is simply EBITDA plus all of the owner's benefit added in. So if I paid myself $200,000, that's in my expenses in my business. As the new owner, that's money that's going to go into my pocket. So I'm allowed to add that back.
Thank you so much. It's a little roadmap, but I appreciate that.
Caleb? Okay. Okay, Caleb, you're good. Okay, so there's a couple of.
Sorry. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Double mute. Sorry about that. Hey, Karl, thanks for taking the time to present to us today. Definitely very insightful. I just had a quick question about suggested sectors to look for or to I guess, start in for, someone that's going through this process for the first time, if that makes sense?
Yeah, there's definitely. So we do a lot of training and sessions around that just to start arming people. But like most things, kind of, reading a book or looking at it in the class, nothing like rolling up your sleeve and getting dirty. So what I would recommend for anyone seriously having a conversation with a broker, and we could arrange one with myself or someone on my team, understanding what you're looking for. You start looking and then start meeting with owners and making offers. You're not going to break anything. You're not going to make any crazy decision, but it'll start giving you a sense of what's out there and the steps in the process. So we recommend people first make a decision you want to do this, and then jump in there and start your search.
Oh, okay. We have a couple of questions in the chat. Before I get to Ms. Allen and Stephen.
Yep, I'll take the first one in the chat. So the
Yeah.
first question was higher multiples on biz buy sell. When you go on and you see things over two. Remember, a business is it's always going to be a negotiation. There is no math that defines the value of a business. The value of business is defined by what two people agree to as the price. On biz buy sell in a lot of these different platforms, everyone thinks their baby is beautiful. Every owner of a business might try to overprice it. They're not doing it to be deceptive. They just don't know any better. And so if you see something that's priced higher than you like, do your own homework, get the information, and you make an offer at the price you think it's worth. You'd be surprised at how many of those get accepted. They may ask for, if you have a house in a neighborhood that the average home is 500,000, someone listed for $1 million, no one ever is going to offer them $1 million. At some point, someone's going to offer them and they'll accept it. That person could be you.
Okay, Stephen actually was ahead of them. Like, what's the down payment, and then what financing loan can I use from the SBA? So down payment and then financing loan.
So for typically down payment, just like when you're buying a house, the SBA is going to require that the borrower puts in anywhere between 10 to 20% equity. They got to put their money in first before the bank lends them the money. So expect whatever the purchase price, expect to be able to have liquidity and cash available to invest at least 10 to 20%. Let me just make it quick. There is no getting around that. You're not buying a business for zero down and all that. There are situations where that may qualify for, but I will tell you, don't walk into that expecting that anywhere when you're using a bank loan. So expect 10 to 20% down equity and certain the bank would lend you the rest. There is another way of acquiring business that has nothing to do with bank, and that's including seller finance. Some businesses, for various reasons, will not qualify for an SBA 7A loan. That is the loan product that's used most often for acquiring businesses. It's not given by the SBA, it's actually given by a bank, but it meets the requirement of the 7A program. If you buy a business that's not using a loan, you can do cash and seller finance. What that is simply is you might bring 70, 80% of the purchase price in cash from whatever means you have to acquire, and the seller will write you a note, just like a bank loan, for the other 10, 20, 30% of it to be paid over time. It has all of the enforcement of a regular loan. The business itself is the collateral, meaning if you default on it, they can take back all of the business and you lose all of the cash that you have put down initially. But for some businesses, for a variety of reasons, would not qualify for an SBA loan, and great value can be gotten from a business. They might be underperforming or struggling. I would recommend that if you know how to fix the business, or if you're already in the business, if you're a roofing company and you're buying another roofing company and you know exactly what's wrong, that could be a great way to get a business for, I'm going to say 30 cents on the dollar, 40 cents, than if they were performing better and had better books and reckoning can qualify for an SBA loan.
Okay, so I want to go to Kirsten.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this information, Karl. One question you just answered, but the other one, you said a second resource that we could put in our information and get emails if there are businesses available that might meet our parameters? What was that?
Yeah, it's a buyer match tool that's on my website. You could sign up for a buyer match, and what it does, it will send you emails for businesses that are available. So for instance, if you're looking for home health care anywhere in the Transworld network, and just to give you an idea, we have 280 offices around the world, 800 brokers. We at any given time we have probably 2,000 to 3,000. We're the largest business brokerage firm in the world. My wife and I own an office here in Metro Atlanta, so we have access to businesses not just here in Georgia but all over the country. It will send you information on businesses that are available. So I'll share the information on where you can get that. If you scan this QR code and or go to the website, you'll be able to sign up for that tool.
Oh, okay, Carl, I don't know if this is gonna be the last one, but I've heard stories of people being able to secure businesses using owner financing with little or no money down. Do you see that question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a myth. Anything with no money down is a myth. Just to be clear, people say it can be done, and don't get me wrong, I might have done one deal ever that the owner did 100% seller finance, but it was a distressed sale. The business was struggling, and the buyer bought the business and paid him back over a year. But if you're going to spend time and try, just think about it, if you were a person that built the business over a number of years, would you sell your business to someone that's asking you to finance it 100% when there's plenty of other buyers that are willing to pay a lot more? It's just not practical.
Fantastic. Look, everybody, it is slightly afternoon at this point. I'm just really pleased and happy about the interest. You know, the questions, like, yeah, they're really seeking this knowledge, because again, the ABC is committed now to educating our community in this area consistently. I think the information, the education is what's going to give people the confidence to take the next step. And we've got the subject matter experts within our organization to deliver it. So thank you, Carl. Somebody was asking for your website. I think they see it here up on the screen. Other questions, I think you should reach out to Carl and meet with Carl or somebody on his team, because we got to go. So, but I'm very, very happy that all of you attended this session today. We'll be doing things like this more and more on this topic. So please come back. Carl, you got anything else closing?
Yeah, the last thing I would say is entrepreneurship is a team sport. And if you're thinking about doing this, don't think about trying to do it alone. There are experts in the chamber, in the community that can help you. I would encourage you to form small groups of people that are looking to search together to encourage each other. But really it starts with, you got to make a decision. Either it's yes, let's go do this. Yes, but I got some questions, and you can reach out to myself and others to do that. Or no, this isn't for me. I want to be an employee the rest of my life and have the security of a job, the fake security of a job. That's okay too. But make a decision and take action. There's a lot of folks that can help you as far as getting funding between different sources. And more importantly, get yourself surrounded by good advisors, people that have experience in doing this, so that you're not making expensive mistakes that's wasting your time and or money.
All right. With that, we will close. And again, thank you for coming into the session. Hope to see you for future sessions on this topic. Thanks so much. Great job, Carl.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Appreciate you representing the Atlanta Black Chambers today.
Bye.
Have a great week, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.